Welcome to Study Loop.
This question is asking us to show our understanding of what the different types of natural and human-related disturbances are and why they matter to ecologists and conservationists. If we look at our answer choices, we are given 4 possible types of disturbances: lightning, pollution, fire, and agriculture, and we are asked to categorize them in different ways. And if you look at the answer choices, there is a multitude, of different ways that these disturbances are characterized. Um, and then each answer choice also includes a second sentence explaining why these matter. So before we get into the answer choices themselves, let's take a look at these 4 disturbances and put them into categories, whether they are natural disturbances, meaning a disturbance that happens irregardless of human existence or interference, such as a tornado or a hurricane or an earthquake, versus the human-related disturbances, which are those that happen because of human interference or human presence. Um, I think probably a good example, it's kind of cheating here because it's one of our options, but it's the best possible example, is pollution. That's probably the biggest one you're familiar with. It's probably the one that should come to mind first when you think about human-related disturbances in an ecological sense. But that leaves us with our other 3 options, and let's start with lightning. So lightning, much like a tornado or the hurricane that I mentioned earlier, is a natural disturbance. It's something that happens as a part of weather uh, occurrences. Lightning would occur regardless of human presence. It's a natural disturbance. So that one's pretty easy. Now we're left with fire and agriculture. So fire is one of those things that could probably be both, depending on who is causing what. A lightning could start a fire. Fires are also naturally occurring, uh, chemical process, but fires can also be started by humans. For right now, because given the basis of the question, fires are something that are like naturally present due to chemical reactions, we can probably place that as a natural disturbance, but that might be, we could challenge that. There are probably some people who could challenge that. And that leaves us with agriculture, which is another one that would be characterized as a human-related disturbance. There are some ecologists who might not categorize it as a full disturbance, but in the basis of this question, it's a human-related disturbance. Agriculture changes the local ecosystem and can affect the environment on a massive scale depending on the size of it, and it's by definition caused by humans. So that is where we are at right now. Now let's take a look at our answer choices here. So based solely on what we just did, by categorizing them up into different places, we know that we can eliminate option C because it characterizes lightning as a human-related disturbance. So that is flat out wrong. Option B is kind of on shaky ground because, again, it fits in with what we've set up here, but the question then becomes, well, is the second sentence what we're looking for? And that's true of options A and D as well, which both correctly define lightning and pollution as relatively natural and human-related disturbances. So let's take a look at option B because that mentions the 2 options that are unique to all of the ones that we have left. So we look at the first sentence, fire equals natural disturbance, agricultural human-related disturbance. That seems to check out. Let's look at the second sentence. The question becomes, is that statement true or not? In option B, we are told that ecosystems cannot bounce back from these disturbances. Now, just stop and think for a moment about whether or not this is true. If this were the case, then places around the world that have been devastated by forest fires, by thunderstorms, by volcanic eruptions, by pollution, whatever disturbance you want to think of, over the entire course of Earth's history, even before humans even existed, there would probably be very few ecosystems left if it was impossible to bounce back from. Now, yes, sometimes it can be very difficult to bounce back from an ecological disturbance, depending on the type and scale and how many organisms were affected, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't ever bounce back. So because of that, option B is a bit too over the top and doesn't consider, the exact scale of ecological history and time. So we can go ahead and cross that one out as well. And that leaves us with options A and D. And if you read their second sentence, the only thing that really differs between the two is in one word. Option A says that these disturbances matter because they affect an ecosystem, whereas option D says that they alter ecosystems. These are two very different things. Affect is very generic, it's very broad. It could be something as little as like a tiny change that comes and goes. Or it could be something happens, but it doesn't actually change the makeup of the ecosystem as a whole. Option D, on the other hand, in terms of the word alter, reflects what happens in the aftermath of these disturbances. So let's take, for instance, agriculture, for instance. That is physically altering the ecosystem wherever this farm is taking place at. Fire physically alters the ecosystem by destroying certain plant and animal life and then changing perhaps the chemical makeup of the soil, thus permitting or not permitting certain organisms to continue to live there for the time after the fire. Same thing with lightning. If it causes a fire or if it strikes down a tree, that would affect and alter perhaps the organisms that are living in or near that area. Pollution, similarly, it alters the ecosystem where it happens, and that can change whether or not certain populations are able to survive there. And because of that specificity in language, option D is our best